Welcome to Self-Critic Reviews, and today Self-Critic is going to review the Chess World Cup 2021 format changes. In the previous video about the World Chess Championship cycle format, I briefly talked about my gripes with the World Cup, how a lot of qualification spots go to not necessarily the strongest players. And recently, the regulations for the next World Cup got released, and the changes are quite drastic. Are those changes for the better? Did FIDE address any of my concerns? Stay with me and find out. So the biggest change is obviously the fact that the number of players has increased from 128 to 206. The idea is to have an extra round where the top seeds, top 50 players, sit it out and start from the second round. On paper, it's all good, but the problem is that the prize for the first round elimination became lower. Take a look at this table, and you will easily see the difference. The prizes are pretty much exactly the same, which makes sense because that's when there are 128 players playing. So the biggest losers are those who lose in the first round. The top 50 seeds are fine, they start from the second round anyways. And you could argue that seed 51 is fine as well, because he's going to play against the last seed. The biggest losers are seeds 128 and 129, and those close to those numbers, because the strengths are very similar. Right now in 2019, of course, seed 128 is not a strong grandmaster, but if the tournament allows more spots for strong players, somebody close to seed 128 is going to be rated at least 2500. Because in the current tournament, seed 119 is already a 2500 player, a very respectable rating. So it's not out of this world to assume that seed 128 will also be a GM, and one of those GMs is going to lose big time. Now let's move on to comparing the actual qualifiers. As you can see, a lot of qualification spots and the numbers are the same. The world champion, women's world champion, the winner, runner-up and semi-finalists of the previous edition of the World Cup, 2 junior champions and the winner of the ACP Tour. They're all the same. And this is no surprise because all of those spots are logical and fully deserve the automatic qualification. I would have probably added the quarterfinalists as well, but it is what it is. As you can see, the nominees from the organizers and FIDE are still there, but there are less of those. FIDE specifically said that they were working on trying to make these events more sporting with less automatic spots, and it seems like a step in the right direction. This intent also resulted in a slight decrease of rating qualifiers, from 18 to 13. Which is not the end of the world, but I do believe lots of rating favorites do well in this competition, and people want to see as many of them play as possible. Okay, so we've covered all the subtle modifications, and now let's discuss the drastic changes. First off, the continental and zonal spots got reduced from 92 to 80, or increased to 130 at best, but we'll get to that. The reduction is clearly a bad thing, but the distribution of the spots became very interesting and more fair. Before, the number of players from each continent to qualify was arbitrary and based on instinct, but now they're using average rating lists to do it. A quote from the regulations themselves. Each continent gets the number of spots equal to the number of respective continent's players in the world top 60, according to the average rating of these rating lists. So what does this mean? This means that, for example, if there are, say, 40 European players in the top 60 rating list, then Europe gets 40 continental spots. If Africa has 0 players, they get 0 continental spots out of those 60, because there are 3 spots for each continent automatically, no matter what. So Africa will still get at least 3 players. They also added 8 junior spots, the distribution of which is also calculated by rating lists, and it's not a bad thing. But I don't really know if the spots are going to the juniors that showed the best results in the Continental Championship, regardless of how high they placed, or to the best juniors outside of those who qualified through regular spots. Because it is a big difference. The latter means more juniors, and the former means that the junior spots might go to non-junior players. But either decision is reasonable to me. Out of curiosity, I calculated how many players in the world top 60 each continent has. I did not use the average rating because it's too tedious, but I used the September lists, and these were the results. 39 Europeans, 8 Americans, 12 Asians, and 1 African. And if I compare this data to the 2019 edition, we get 4 less Europeans, 9 less Americans, 5 less Asians, and 2 less Africans. This especially takes a toll on Americans, because a sizable number of qualifiers come from the US Championship zonal, because everybody's too lazy to travel to South America for the cumulative continentals. But this is not all, and not everything is terrible. As you could have seen from my table, there are 100 Olympiad spots. What does that mean? It means that according to the final ranking of Olympiad 2020, the first top 100 nations get a right to choose one of their national team members to participate in the World Cup. And they choose the criteria. So for example, Ukraine could have chosen Ivanchuk to go to the World Cup. And he is a strong player and is always a welcome addition to any competition. But there can be no more than 40 spots from one continent, which puts Europe at a big disadvantage, because they will be losing spots. Out of curiosity, I applied this criteria to the most recent Olympiad, and these were the results. As you can see, 7 European countries did not make it. But that's not even the problem. You see, these qualification spots might seem like a great idea, but the thing is that lots of these national team members are just not good enough and will likely crash out of the first round. In my opinion, any player above 2600 deserves to be in the World Cup based on merit. They are strong and difficult players to beat. 2500 GMs are not pushovers either, so lots of them are worthy of a spot as well. However, anybody below 2500 is just not good enough, unless they participated in a tournament full of 2600s and qualified through it. Let's take a look at my table again. As you can see, I listed players' rating of each nation, who I think their respective country might choose. And as you can see, Europe has the strongest players. I said it in my previous video, and I'm saying it now. And ratings and results of the Olympiad support my point. So there are potentially lots of sub-2500 players in other continents. And that weakens the field a lot. Yeah, sure, they get an opportunity to play in the World Cup, and that's nice. But what about the other strong players that don't get a chance, playing strong continentals and fail to qualify? What about them? There is also another caveat that makes things slightly better, but I don't know how much it really changes things. Each continent has the right to transfer up to 50% of the eventual respective continent's Olympiad spots to continental events. For example, if Europe has 40 Olympiad spots, they can transfer up to 20 weaker country spots to continental events to maximize the number of strong players in the World Cup. It's especially beneficial for America and Asia, but it's not gonna make much difference for Africa, I'm afraid. The question is, who makes that decision? The wording says it's the continent, but what does that mean? Is there some kind of continent representative or an ambassador who makes all the major decisions? If so, I imagine 20 spots are likely to go to the continental spots. If, however, the decisions are up to the countries themselves, then it's really bad, because I cannot imagine any country wanting to give up their spots away for free. This decision-making process does not seem transparent, and I imagine lots of shady deals being made there. So who knows? But in the best-case scenario, 16 more Europeans, 1 more American, 8 more Asians, 4 more Africans could qualify through continental spots. And that's pretty good. So in conclusion, while more stronger players will get a chance to play in the World Cup, there will be even more weaker players playing, a lot of whom will crash out of the competition in the first round anyway. So unfortunately, my cry for more stronger players wasn't answered. But it's understandable why. FIDE wants more attention and exposure from the World Cup worldwide, and having as many countries participate in the competition as possible will attract more buzz. But I'm not sure how useful that buzz will be. But it might inspire some of the countries to take chess more seriously and provide more opportunities. So that's nice. Thanks for watching.
These are self-critic reviews on television and news. If this ain't your favorite artist, well, you're not getting amused. This is self-critic reviews.
Is this gonna get different clues? Or when if it's on YouTube, yet he is getting no views.
If you want some unbiased opinions, an analytic mind is worth billions. Yet he has been hiding his brilliance underneath this stifling difference. And if you don't like his opinions, go look for like-minded civilians to whine in the comment section and slap a dislike on his videos.